My son didn't want to play in the backyard anymore. Why not, I asked. That man, he said quietly. He's always watching. I looked across the street at the house. The curtain moved. Someone was there. 3 weeks ago, that house had been sold. New neighbors had moved in. We hadn't met yet, but strange things were happening. In the first week, my trash can had been knocked into the middle of the street. Second week, my car tire went flat. Third week, the police came. Noise complaint, but there was no noise. Fourth day, my mail went missing. Fifth day, the garden hose was cut. Sixth day, my daughter came home crying. The man across the street stared at me. I was scared. She was 7 years old. That evening, I walked across the street. As I reached for the doorbell, I heard a voice. A familiar voice. A woman's voice. The door opened, and everything made sense. My name is Bryce Donovan. I'm 40 years old. I lived a quiet life in Portland with my 2 kids, until that house was sold. I'd been divorced for 3 years. My ex-wife Amber and I had split when the kids were young. Tyler was 5 then. Sophie was 4. The divorce had been civil enough. No screaming matches. No custody battles. We'd agreed on shared custody, alternating weeks. Holidays split evenly. I'd bought a house in a quiet neighborhood in northeast Portland. 3 bedrooms, small yard, good schools. Tyler and Sophie adjusted well. They had their routines, their rooms, their friends in the neighborhood. Life had settled into a comfortable rhythm. I worked as a project manager for a construction firm. Steady job, good benefits. I coached Tyler's soccer team on weekends, helped Sophie with her homework, made dinner, did laundry, the regular single dad routine. Amber had moved to the west side of town, remarried after a year. Some guy named Curtis Brennan. I'd never met him, didn't want to. The kids mentioned him occasionally. Curtis has a big TV. Curtis took us to the coast. I didn't ask for details. As long as the kids were safe and happy, that's all that mattered. The house across from mine had been occupied by an elderly couple, the Richardsons. They'd lived there for 40 years. Quiet neighbors. We'd wave when we saw each other. They'd give my kids cookies at Halloween. Last spring, Mr. Richardson passed away. Mrs. Richardson moved to assisted living. The house went on the market. I didn't pay much attention to who bought it. Houses in the neighborhood sold quickly. Good location, decent prices. The sold sign went up in late August. Moving trucks arrived 3 weeks later on a Saturday morning. I was making breakfast when Tyler looked out the window. New neighbors, Dad. That's nice, buddy. I didn't look up from the stove. I was focused on not burning the pancakes. They have a big truck. And a fancy car. That made me glance up. Through the kitchen window, I could see a black Mercedes parked in the driveway. Not common in our neighborhood. Most people drove Subarus or Hondas. The practical Portland cars. Maybe they're rich, Tyler said. Maybe. I flipped a pancake. Go wash up for breakfast. The first strange thing happened that afternoon. I was mowing the lawn. Tyler and Sophie were playing in the backyard. I finished the front yard and put the mower away. When I went back inside, I noticed my trash can had been moved. It was sitting in the middle of the street. Not at the curb where I'd left it, in the actual street. I walked out and moved it back. Assumed the wind had knocked it over and it rolled, even though there hadn't been any wind. The next day was Sunday. I took the kids to the park in the morning. When we got back, my car had a flat tire. Driver's side front. I changed it. Noticed there was a clean puncture in the sidewall. Not from running over a nail. This looked deliberate, like someone had put a knife to it. But who would do that? I didn't have enemies. Didn't have disputes with neighbors. I filed it away as bad luck. That evening I was making dinner when I saw movement across the street. The new neighbors. A man stepped out onto the porch. Tall, maybe 6'2", well-built, expensive-looking clothes, even for a Sunday evening. He looked directly at my house, stood there for a long moment, then went back inside. Something about it felt off. The way he'd stared. Not a friendly neighbor checking out the street. More like he was studying something. Tuesday evening, the police knocked on my door. Mr. Donovan? Yes. We received a noise complaint from your neighbor across the street. Says there's been loud music and yelling. I stared at the officer. There's no music. The kids are doing homework. I'm making dinner. The officer looked past me into the house. It was quiet except for the sound of the stove. Mind if I take a look around? Go ahead. He walked through the main floor, checked the volume on the TV in the living room. It was off. Went upstairs, came back down. Everything seems fine here. Maybe a misunderstanding. Who complained? The resident at 4217, across the street. the house the new neighbors had just moved into. After the officer left, I stood on my porch looking across the street. The curtains were drawn, but I could see a shadow behind one watching. That's when it started to feel intentional. Over the next week, it escalated. Wednesday, my mail didn't arrive. I called the post office. They said it had been delivered, signed for by someone at my address, but I hadn't signed for anything. Thursday morning, I found my garden hose cut into pieces. Clean cuts. Someone had used scissors or a knife. Friday evening, Sophie came home from playing at a friend's house 2 doors down. She was crying. What happened, sweetie? The man across the street. He was, standing on his porch, just staring at me. It scared me. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Adults targeting adults was one thing, but making a 7-year-old girl uncomfortable? That crossed a line. Did he say anything? No. He just stood there, watching. I hugged her. It's okay. You're safe. But I was angry. That evening after the kids were in bed, I walked across the street, knocked on the door, waited, heard voices inside. A man's voice, then a woman's voice, familiar. The door opened. The tall man stood there. Polo shirt, expensive watch, cold eyes. Can I help you? I'm your neighbor, Bryce Donovan, from across the street. I know who you are. That stopped me. You know? Bryce Donovan, project manager, 2 kids, divorced 3 years ago. The way he said it, like he'd researched me. Who are you? Curtis Brennan. The name hit me. Amber's new husband. You bought this house? That's right. Why? He smiled. Not friendly. It was available. Good neighborhood. Good schools. You live on the west side. 30 minutes from here. We wanted to change. I heard footsteps behind him. A woman appeared. Amber, my ex-wife. Her face was a mixture of guilt and defiance. Bryce, Amber, you moved across the street from me. We didn't think it would be a problem. You didn't think... I stopped. Took a breath. Your husband has been harassing us. Police complaints, cut hoses, stolen mail. Staring at Sophie, Curtis stepped forward. I haven't harassed anyone. If there have been issues in the neighborhood, that's not my fault. Sophie said you were staring at her. I was standing on my own porch, looking at my own street. If that makes people uncomfortable, that's their problem. Amber touched his arm. Curtis, he shook her off. No, I'm tired of being accused of things. We have every right to live here. I looked at Amber. Why would you do this? She didn't answer. Curtis spoke instead. This conversation is over. You're on my property. I wanted to argue, to demand answers. But the look on Curtis's face told me it would go nowhere. I left, walked back across the street. Tyler was watching from his bedroom window. I waved to let him know everything was okay. But nothing was okay. My ex-wife and her husband had deliberately moved in across from me, and they were making my life hell. The question was why. Over the next week, I started documenting everything. Every incident, every interaction. I installed a security camera above my front door, pointed it at the street and my front yard. I kept a notebook of dates and times. Monday morning, I found my garbage scattered across my lawn. The camera caught Curtis walking past at 3 a.m., pausing, looking at my house, then walking on. Nothing definitive, but suspicious. Tuesday, the police came again. Another noise complaint. I showed the officer my camera footage, timestamp showing no one had entered or left my house during the time of the alleged noise. I think someone is filing false reports. The officer made a note. If it continues, we can investigate. But right now, it's just complaints. Wednesday evening, Chris was in his driveway washing his car. I was getting mail. He called out, "Nice weather we're having." I didn't respond. You know, Bryce, the thing about neighborhoods is everyone needs to get along. Be good neighbors. Is that what you're doing? Being a good neighbor? He smiled. I'm doing exactly what I need to do. Which is? Making sure my family's comfortable. By harassing I haven't harassed anyone. But if certain people found this neighborhood uncomfortable and decided to move, that would be unfortunate. For them. There it was. He wanted me gone. I'm not moving. We'll see. That night, I called my attorney, Paul Chen. We'd worked together during my divorce. Paul, I need advice on a neighbor situation. I explained everything. The move-in, the harassment, the police complaints, Curtis's comment about wanting me to move. That's targeted harassment, Paul said. Document everything, every incident, every interaction. If he continues, we can find an order. Would that work? Depends on evidence. The camera footage helps. Keep recording. If you can prove a pattern of intentional harassment, we have a case. I also reached out to my custody attorney, Melissa Ross. Can Amber moving across the street affect custody? Not directly, Melissa said. But if Curtis is creating an unstable environment for the kids, we could argue it's not in their best interest to be at your house during his harassment campaign. Or we could argue his behavior demonstrates poor judgment on Amber's part. Could I get full custody? Possibly, with enough evidence. That gave me something to work toward, not just protecting my home, protecting my time with my kids. The harassment continued. Thursday, my car was keyed, a long scratch down the driver's side. The camera didn't catch it. It happened while I was at work. Friday, animal control showed up. Someone had reported a vicious dog at my address. I didn't have a dog. Saturday morning, I found my mailbox knocked over. Camera footage showed a truck driving past at high speed. Couldn't see the plate. Sunday was Tyler's soccer game. I was coaching. Midway through the second half, I saw Curtis in the stands, sitting alone, watching. Not watching Tyler, watching me. After the game, I walked over. What are you doing here? Public park, public game. I can watch if I want. Tyler's not even your stepson this week. It's my custody time. Just observing. Making sure everything is appropriate. Meaning, making sure you're a fit parent. For the kid's sake. The implication was clear. He was building a case, trying to find something to use against me in a custody challenge. I walked away before I said something I'd regret. That evening, I sat down with Tyler and Sophie. I need to talk to you about something important. The man across the street, Curtis, and your mom. Have they said anything to you? Asked you questions about me? Tyler nodded slowly. Curtis asked stuff, like if you get mad, if you yell, if the house is clean. When does he ask this? When we're at Mom's. During the week. I kept my voice calm. What do you tell him? That you're a good dad. That you don't yell. That everything's fine. I hugged him. Thank you, buddy. That's exactly right. But if he keeps asking questions, I need you to tell me. Okay? Okay. Sophie was quieter. Sweetie, you can tell me anything? Has Curtis or Mom said anything that worried you? She looked down. Curtis said maybe we should live with them full time. That it's better. Bigger house. More stuff. My chest tightened. How do you feel about that? I don't want to. I like our house. I like my room. I like being with you. You're not going anywhere. I promise. But inside, I was planning. Curtis and Amber were going after custody. The harassment wasn't just about making me uncomfortable. It was about building a case that I was an unfit parent, that the neighborhood was unstable, that the kids would be better off living with them full time. I spent Sunday evening reviewing everything I had. Camera footage, police reports, photos of damage, Tyler's statement about the questions. It wasn't enough yet, but it was building. Monday morning, I met with Paul and Melissa together, showed them everything. This is good, Melissa said. This establishes a pattern. Curtis is deliberately creating incidents to destabilize your home environment. Can we file for a restraining order? Paul nodded. I think we have enough, especially with the direct threat about making you and the questioning of the children about your fitness as a parent. How long will it take? Emergency order can be filed this week. Hearing within 10 days. If approved, Curtis would have to stay away from you and the kids, at least 100 feet. What about Amber? Custody doesn't change immediately, but this affects her judgment. We can file a motion to modify custody based on her choice to enable this harassment. We filed the paperwork Tuesday morning. Emergency restraining order request, motion to modify custody, supporting documents, photos, videos, statements. The hearing was scheduled for the following Monday. That gave me 6 days. 6 days where Curtis didn't know what was coming. I used them carefully. I installed 2 more cameras, one covering the backyard, one covering the side of the house. I got statements from other neighbors. The family 2 doors down confirmed Sophie had been upset after Curtis stared at her. The couple next door confirmed they'd seen Curtis walking past my house at odd hours. I documented every incident, every police visit, every piece of property damage. Friday evening, Curtis was in his yard again. I was bringing in groceries. He called out, "Bryce, you've been busy this week. Lots of activity, installing cameras, talking to neighbors. What's going on?" I didn't answer. You know, it's interesting. All this security, like you're worried about something, makes a person wonder what kind of environment you're creating for those kids. I set down the groceries, walked to the edge of my driveway, close enough to talk without shouting. "Curtis, let me ask you something. Why are you doing this?" "Doing what?" "You know what? The harassment, the police complaints, the property damage, moving in across from me. Why?" He smiled. "I'm not doing anything. But if you're feeling stressed, maybe that says something about your stability. You want me gone. You said it yourself." "Did I? I don't remember that." "I have it on video." His smile faded slightly. Videos can be edited, misinterpreted. Not these ones. We'll see. Monday morning arrived. The hearing was at 10 a.m. Paul and Melissa met me outside the courthouse. "Remember," Melissa said, "stay calm. Answer questions directly. Don't let Curtis or his attorney provoke you." We entered the courtroom. Curtis and Amber were already there with their attorney. David Wu, experienced family law attorney. Expensive. The judge was Patricia Reeves. I'd heard she was fair, but tough. "Mr. Donovan," she began, "you filed for an emergency restraining order against Curtis Brennan and a motion to modify custody regarding your children. Explain the basis for these requests." I walked through everything. The move-in, the escalating harassment, the property damage, the police complaints, the questioning of my children, the threat to make me move. Paul presented the evidence. Videos, photos, police reports, neighbor statements. Judge Reeves watched everything, made notes, turned to Curtis's attorney. "Mr. Wu, Your Honor, my client denies these allegations. He and his wife purchased a home in a neighborhood where his stepchildren spend half their time. That's responsible parenting, making sure they're nearby. As for these incidents, my client has done nothing wrong. The police have not charged him with anything. The property damage could be anyone. The complaints were legitimate concerns about noise. What about the statement that he wanted Mr. Donovan to move? Taken out of context. My client was simply noting that if someone found a neighborhood uncomfortable, they might choose to leave. That's not a threat." Judge Reeves looked at Amber. "Mrs. Brennan, why did you move across the street from your ex-husband?" Amber shifted. "We liked the house, the neighborhood. It's near the kids' school. You didn't think it might create conflicts? We hoped everyone could be mature about it." "By everyone, you mean Mr. Donovan?" "Yes. Have you been mature about it?" Amber hesitated. "I think so. You're aware your husband has been filing noise complaints? Questioning your children about their father? Making comments about him moving? Curtis is protective. He wants what's best for the kids. By harassing their father? It's not harassment. It's what, Mrs. Brennan?" Amber didn't answer. Judge Reeves turned back to Curtis. "Mr. Brennan, these videos show you walking past Mr. Donovan's house at 3 a.m., standing on your porch staring at his children, filing police complaints that turned out to be false, making statements about wanting him to move. This doesn't look like concerned parenting. This looks like a targeted campaign." Curtis leaned forward. "Your Honor, I've done nothing illegal. I live across the street. I'm allowed to walk on the sidewalk, stand on my own porch, file complaints if I have concern. Concerns that turned out to be false. I reported what I believe to be true. 9 times in 3 weeks?" Curtis didn't answer. Judge Reeves looked at her notes. "Here's what I see. Mr. Brennan and Mrs. Brennan purchased a home directly across from Mr. Donovan. Within 3 weeks, there were 9 police complaints filed by Mr. Brennan, multiple incidents of property damage, documented evidence of Mr. Brennan watching Mr. Donovan's children in a manner that made them uncomfortable, statements to Mr. Donovan about wanting him to move, and questioning of the minor children about their father's fitness as a parent. This is not normal behavior. This is harassment." She looked at Curtis and Amber. "I'm granting the temporary restraining order. Mr. Brennan, you are to stay at least 100 feet from Mr. Donovan and his children at all times. You are not to contact him directly or indirectly. You are not to file police complaints unless there is genuine emergency. You are not to damage his property or enter his property for any reason." She turned to Amber. "Mrs. Brennan, custody will remain as is for now. But be aware that your decision to enable this harassment reflects poorly on your judgment. Mr. Donovan has filed a motion to modify custody. That hearing is scheduled for 6 weeks from now. Between now and then, I suggest you think carefully about whether your current living arrangement is in your children's best interest. Because if this behavior continues, I will consider full custody for Mr. Donovan." Amber's face went pale. Curtis's jaw clenched. Court adjourned. We left the courthouse. Paul and Melissa were pleased. "That went as well as it could," Paul said. The judge saw right through Curtis. "The restraining order is solid. What happens now?" "Curtis has to stay away. If he violates it, he can be arrested. In the meantime, we prepare for the custody hearing. Over the next 6 weeks, life slowly returned to normal. Curtis stayed away. No more police visits. No more property damage. The kids relaxed. Tyler played in the backyard again. Sophie stopped looking across the street nervously. I kept the cameras running, documented that Curtis was complying with the restraining order, at least mostly. I'd see him on his porch occasionally, watching from a distance, but he didn't approach, didn't file complaints. Amber picked up the kids for her custody time. We didn't talk beyond logistics. She looked tired, stressed. I felt no satisfaction from that, just sadness that it had come to this. The custody hearing arrived. Same courthouse, same judge, but this time there were more people. Tyler and Sophie's guardian ad litem, a court-appointed attorney representing the kids' interests. She'd interviewed both of them, spent time at both houses. Judge Reeves began. I've reviewed the reports from the guardian ad litem. I've reviewed the restraining order compliance, and I've reviewed the statements from both parents. Mrs. Brennan, let's start with you. Have you and your husband reconsidered your living arrangement? Amber nodded. We're moving. We found a house on the west side, near our old place. We're closing next month. Why the change? Because this wasn't working. Curtis thought being close to the kids would be good, but it created problems. We see that now. Mr. Brennan, do you agree? Curtis looked like he wanted to argue, but his attorney had clearly coached him. Yes, Your Honor. We're moving to reduce conflict. Judge Reeves looked at her notes. The guardian ad litem has reported that both children, Tyler and Sophie, are thriving in both homes. However, they expressed anxiety about the conflict between the adults. Tyler specifically said he felt caught in the middle. Sophie said she was afraid to go to her mother's house because Curtis might be angry. She paused. Mr. Brennan, your behavior toward Mr. Donovan and the children has been inappropriate. You've created an environment of intimidation and stress. That is not acceptable. However, you've complied with the restraining order. You're moving, and the children do need a relationship with their mother. She turned to me. Mr. Donovan, do you want full custody? I'd thought about this question for weeks. Did I want to take the kids away from Amber? She was still their mother. Despite everything, she loved them. Curtis had been the problem, not her. Your Honor, I want what's best for Tyler and Sophie. If Amber and Curtis are moving away from my street, I think we can return to our original custody arrangement, with one condition, which is, Curtis is not to be alone with the children. If he's going to be in their lives, Amber needs to be present. Always. Judge Reeves nodded. Mrs. Brennan, do you agree to that term? Amber looked at Curtis. He was stiff, angry, but he nodded. Yes, Your Honor. Then custody will remain as originally ordered. Alternating weeks, split holidays, with the addition that Curtis Brennan is not to be alone with the minor children. The restraining order will remain in effect for 1 year. After that, we can revisit if both parties have maintained civil behavior. Is that understood? Yes, Your Honor. We left the courthouse. Paul patted my shoulder. You did good. You protected your kids, and you gave Amber a chance to do better. I hope she takes it. Me too. 3 weeks later, the moving truck appeared across the street. Curtis and Amber were leaving. I watched from my porch. Didn't help, didn't wave, just watched. Curtis caught my eye once, held my gaze. I didn't look away. Eventually he turned and climbed into his Mercedes. Amber got into her car. They drove away. The house sat empty for a month. Then a new family moved in. Young couple, no kids. They introduced themselves, brought cookies. We became friendly neighbors. Life returned to what it had been. Tyler and Sophie continued their routine. Alternating weeks. Curtis kept his distance during Amber's custody time. I didn't see him, didn't hear about him. The kids said he was quieter, less involved. That was fine with me. A year after the restraining order, I got a call from Amber. Bryce, can we talk? About what? About everything. I need to apologize. What Curtis did, what we did, moving across from you, the harassment. It was wrong. I knew it was wrong, but I didn't stop it. Why didn't you? Because Curtis convinced me you were a bad father, that the kids would be better off with us full time, that we needed to be close to monitor things. I believed him, or I wanted to believe him, but he was wrong. You're a good father. The kids are happy with you. I'm sorry. Okay. That's it? Just okay? What else do you want me to say, Amber? You and your husband tried to ruin my life, tried to take my kids. I'm glad you see that was wrong. But it doesn't undo what happened. I know. I just wanted you to know that Curtis and I are separated. I filed for divorce 2 months ago. He's out of the house, out of the kids' lives. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? I'm sorry the kids have to go through another divorce. I'm not sorry Curtis is gone. Fair enough. We hung up. I felt nothing. No vindication. No satisfaction. Just relief that it was over. My name is Bryce Donovan. I'm 41 years old now. I still live in that house in Portland with my kids. Tyler is 9. Sophie is 8. They're happy. healthy. They see their mom regularly. Curtis is gone from their lives. The new neighbors across the street are quiet, friendly, normal. Sometimes I think about that year. The harassment, the stress, the fear that I might lose my kids. And I think about how easily it could have gone differently if I hadn't documented everything, if I hadn't had good attorneys, if the judge hadn't seen through Curtis's lies. But I did, and she did, and we made it through. Sometimes protecting your family means fighting battles you never wanted. Sometimes it means standing your ground when someone tries to push you out. Sometimes it means being patient and strategic instead of angry and reactive. I learned that the hard way, but I learned it, and my kids are safe. That's all that matters.